Hello and welcome back to the Anxious Personality with me, Sarah B from Coaching with Sarah B. We are on season 2. It's technically episode 11, but we're on season 2. Can we even cope? So please screenshot this episode, share it on social media, tag me at Coaching with Sarah B. Now, on this season, in season 2, I decided that it would be a nice change, I suppose, to do more of a blog style episodes. So you're still going to kind of get some value from it in terms of tools that you can implement, just like it was in season 1. But moving forward, obviously, you'll hear a bit more about like how I implement them tools into my day-to-day life. So I am going to start this episode with a bit of a shocker all the way around. So I am going to just put it out there that this is going to be a trigger for some of you. And yeah, so this is my trigger warning for you guys right now, that this could be an episode that might not be for you. If you do listen all the way through and it is relevant for you or somebody that you know, I hope that you can take some value from it and take something away that is going to be helpful. So I'm just gonna get on with it. This is going to be a very, very vulnerable episode, and to me, the reason that I am being so vulnerable with this episode is because I don't feel like it's spoken about enough. And when it's not, the fact that it's not spoken about very much, I think very much adds to the situation, adds to the emotions that I felt around this topic. So it's been a bit of a whirlwind of a week. So within the last 7 days, we found out that we were pregnant. We told our family, our close family, and some close friends. And then yesterday, we found out that we have miscarried. So I'm just going to let you absorb that. So in 7 days, all of that has happened. So the pregnancy wasn't planned. So that was a complete and utter shock for me and Ashley. That was like a huge thing for us to just process on its own. And for anyone that does know us, we have openly said to friends, family, people, generally just being very open and said, we're not even sure if we desperately want kids. We were very much kind of like a bit blasé about it, and that's kind of also what added to kind of the whole picture, in the sense that it was a shock, in a sense of, obviously it wasn't planned and it was never really something that was imminently on the cards for us. It was just kind of like in the back of our minds. So obviously we processed all that. We took a few days and it was like, oh shit. And obviously being like, quite early on, there's not really much to kind of make it feel real, other than, it's, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, you've got your pregnancy app, you maybe tell a couple of people, maybe you don't, you might have, the typical early pregnancy symptoms of feeling sick, sore boobs, sore back, all these kind of things. And other than that, it's kind of like you don't really feel any different. Well, I didn't anyways. I did have a moment kind of midweek where I felt really, really sick. I thought, oh my God, I'm going to throw up. I didn't, but that was kind of like the biggest thing where I was like, oh God, so overwhelming. And it's kind of like been on and off a bit of nausea. I've not been able to eat as big a portions as I normally would. Been got the toilet a lot more. And like had a bit of a sore back and things like that. Everything that I was feeling was like, physically, was like totally normal for, you know, first trimester and everything like that. I'd taken 4 pregnancy tests on different days. So I took the first one on like the Saturday evening, took another 2 on the Sunday morning, and then took a 4th one on the Friday, so like 3 days ago. And on the Sunday, so 2 days later, we told our immediate family. So we told both my parents, both Ashley's parents, our grandparents. You know, we told a couple of close friends and things. So that was on the Sunday morning. Now, the following day, I just like to point out at that moment actually that this would have been our parents' first grandchild and our grandparents' first great-grandchild. Sorry. And I get upset when I say that because, and I'm fine about talking about everything else pretty much, but I think I get upset at that point because obviously everyone was so excited. It's, you know, first grandchild, first great-grandchild. And for us, I think I speak for us both in this point, but for us, it was so lovely, and it was just so nice to see everyone so excited. And then literally 24 hours later, 3 hours after, you know, 3 hours in a hospital and stuff, finding out that we've miscarried. That's what's most difficult, I think, for us at the minute. But yeah, after we told everyone, within 24 hours, I had started bleeding. You know, like later on that day. And obviously, initial thoughts is like, oh shit, I'm bleeding. Google obviously comes out. It's a late Sunday evening. And a lot of things say, like, you know, if you're light bleeding, everything's fine, but heavy bleeding, you need to like be concerned. And I was like, oh, well, it's not really been anything. So I'm in the light category, everything's fine. Woke up a day later, so this is yesterday morning now. Woke up a day later and it had got heavier, you know, and as the morning progressed, I mean, the fact that it had just got even a fraction heavier, and, you know, this might be a little bit TMI for some people, but, you know, the fact that it was like little clots and things in there, obviously, I was then thinking, oh shit. So I tried to get through to the doctors. Everyone knows, first thing in the morning, 8:15, trying to get through to the doctors is like nigh on impossible. And I was like 28th in line. I was like, I am not waiting half an hour to be told we can't help you here at the doctors. So I thought, you know what, I'm just going to ring the midwives. Rung the midwives at the hospital. She was so lovely, and she basically had sorted me out an appointment within the hour to go at 1 o'clock to the ward at the hospital to be seen and whatnot. So obviously Ashley came out of work, had my appointment, you know, they did some bloods, did swabs, and at that time, at that point, they actually had said, you know, it could be, it is highly likely. I don't think she said highly likely. What did she say? All I remember hearing, I think I must have blacked out a little bit, to be honest, because they'd taken my bloods as well, and I don't like needles. I freaking hate it. And she basically had said, you know, the word miscarriage, and my brain just went to mush. We then had to wait, I think it was we waited about an hour, and then someone told us that they'd managed to squeeze us in for an ultrasound, because that would be the only way to determine what exactly, like, you know, concrete, exactly what's happening. So they told us then, they came in at about 3:15 and said, we've got your appointment at 4:15, so if you head down at about 4 o'clock to the x-ray department and tell them that you're there for an ultrasound. we went round. Also, thank God for Netflix and Wi-Fi. We were watching a lot of Netflix in the waiting room, which passed the time, thankfully. And thankfully, we were actually the only people in the waiting room as well, because we were on the actual ward. They had we were basically sat in like the visitors, what would be the visitors room, but obviously it was before visiting hours. So thankfully, we had the room to ourselves. So we went down to the X-ray department for the ultrasound at 4:15, and obviously everything you see on the films and like people that you speak to, they're like, oh, the jelly's really cold and stuff. But do you know what? She'd heated it up and it was really quite nice. But yeah, it was a very surreal experience. Just generally having an ultrasound was very surreal, because obviously you see pictures of people's scans and like, so you kind of know what to expect on the screen. And she just said, you know, there is no sign of a fetus in there or a baby. I don't know what she said, but I just heard there's no sign of anything. And then she showed me the screen and she explained everything, that, you know, that was my bladder and that was my uterus and blah, blah. And she was really lovely. And, you know, from their point of view, you know, it's probably heartbreaking for them every single time they have to deliver news like that. I was told that now it's 1 in 3 women miscarry, which is quite a high number, and I didn't realise that the number was that high, to be honest. I thought it was a bit less than that. But anyways, we had that. We had to go back to the ward, which at the time, to be honest, walking back to the ward, I was walking through and I just thought, honestly, I felt like a little girl that had been sent to her room. I don't know why, but walking back to the ward, I felt like a little girl that had been just sent to her room, because I just thought, what is the point of going back to the ward? Like, I've been told the news, I know what's happened, why can't I just go home? So we went back to the ward anyways, and they were so lovely. You know, the nurse and the doctor came in and they were very, very reassuring. Lovely Irish nurse. She was absolutely adorable. And they just basically, they give you what they call a memory box, and it's got, you know, some really nice like kind of memorabilia type things in there, some self-care things like some candles, like some chamomile tea, and like a essential oil roll-on and things like that. And then obviously they've got like a leaflet with advice on how you can handle it, on numbers and communities and groups and things like that you can contact, and if you need to, and they have like a little what was it called, like a paper seed, which I was like, what is this? And I touched it and it was sticky, so I had seeds all over my finger. But yeah, so you can obviously, it's each to their own, like how you want to then process it. But this box was like a really nice touch. But they were so lovely and just said, you know, gave us the aftercare advice in terms of whatever you want to do now. Like, this is what we advise. This is what, you know, you might feel over the next few days, for like me physically, but as a couple, you know, everyone deals with it differently, because it is a loss and it is grief at the end of the day. So that is kind of 10 minutes or 30 minutes of the week, and it was probably the biggest emotional roller coaster that I have ever been on. And when I think about the fact that it's literally happened in the space of 7 days, it just baffles me. So a lot of you are probably wondering, maybe, you know, how am I feeling right now? How am I able to jump on this podcast and on YouTube and share this with you literally kind of 24 hours, if that, after I've found out this information? And as I said at the start, I am an open book, and I am a mindset coach at the end of the day. And like I said at the beginning, I think because this is a bit of a taboo subject and people don't really talk about it, it can make it harder for some people that are going through it. Now, I have asked myself, the question, should I have told people when I was only 8 weeks? When I initially had the idea in my head, I'm going to tell people, I want to share the news with everybody. Obviously, if you follow me for a while, you'll know I am a huge believer in manifestation. I'm a huge believer in, everything happens for a reason, and, the powers of the universe and everything like that. And part of me was like, if I keep this to myself because of the fact that there is a higher chance of miscarriage in the first 12 weeks, that to me was essentially manifesting that was going to happen, regardless. Like, that's what I was expecting to happen. The other reason why I chose to tell people at such an early stage was because I personally feel like if that's the way that things were meant to go, which obviously it was, I feel like that part of the process can be made a lot harder if you don't have the support around you. So for me, if I hadn't told my family and friends, I would have been feeling like utter shit yesterday. Like, honestly, I can't even tell you how I felt physically, emotionally, and mentally yesterday. It was, I can't even put it into words. But if I'd have felt like that and I had seen or spoken to anyone, they would have had absolutely no idea. And I probably would have felt like I would have had to put on a front because they have no idea. So for me, from the offset, I was like, no, I want to tell people, because if that is the direction that this pregnancy is meant to take, I want to be able to have that support. But also, I didn't want to tell people at 12 weeks and then think, shit, I've got less than 6 months of kind of the support moving forward in like preparation. So there was quite a lot of things that kind of in my head in terms of like telling people, I didn't want to have the stress of trying to hide it, because I obviously go for coffee at my parents every Sunday morning, and you're not supposed to have more than 200 milligrams of caffeine when you're pregnant. We quite often go around to my parents and we'll have like a glass of Prosecco on the weekend and things like that. And me saying no to those things would have just been a massive red flag. And I just like the anxiety around not being my authentic self for that period of time. I just think it would have been more stressful, and then it's then kind of like catch-22, like, oh, did you cause the stress to cause the miscarriage and things like that. So even though the nurses have said they can never tell you why anyone miscarries in the first trimester, if it was to happen in the second or third, they can kind of pinpoint a little bit more as to the reasoning. But in the first trimester, they just have absolutely no they have no scientific reasoning for it. It could just be that the body wasn't ready. It could be that the attachment wasn't strong enough. There's so many things that could have caused it that they can't actually say specifically. Which again, for some people, that could be making things a lot worse in their head, because they will probably think back, because I went through a small amount of time yesterday where I was thinking back through the last week and being like, what have I done that could have caused it? What did I do when I wasn't aware that I was pregnant for the 8 weeks prior? All that kind of thing. So it's just a whole bundle, and it's just a whole different world. And unless you have been through it, it's and I, touch wood, I hope nobody that is listening ever does go through it. but unless you've ever been through it, you just can't put it into words to describe it to somebody else, because it's very strange, and it's a lot of different things at once. And also, everyone is so individual, so even if I could put into words how I feel and what kind of process I've gone through, it's going to be very different for somebody else. It's like I said before, it's grief at the end of the day, and grief is very different. There's a full spectrum of how people feel and how people process it, and things that go through their minds in that process. So I wanted to share with you kind of like how I have been able to share this with you so like thoroughly and so raw, in such a like close proximity to finding out the news, without bawling in tears, other than obviously getting upset around the family aspect. And because I am a mindset coach and I've done the work on myself, I have accumulated so many tools. My thought process and the way that my brain is now wired to think and work is so different to what it would have been if this had happened to me 12 months, 2 years ago. Like, obviously I'm older anyways, and more emotionally equipped and things like that, but in terms of where my headspace is at for this specific event, I've got such a, what's the word I'm looking for, like such a large amount of tools, and I've had such a period of time of retraining and rewiring my brain that I've been able to process the majority of my emotions overnight. And I don't mean that like lightly, like I literally have done it overnight. This literally happened. We found out the news at 4:15 yesterday, and I am now sat here telling you exactly what happened. Now, that doesn't mean that anyone listening, anyone watching, if you have or are going through, or you know someone that this has happened to, does not mean by any way, shape or form that they should get over it overnight. And I'm not saying that I'm over it. I've had a few moments this morning already where I've just been a bit teary out of the blue. Nothing's triggered me. It's just like, oh my days, still processing and feeling those emotions. But the reason that I'm able to sit here with a full face of makeup on, dressed, done my hair, even though my bun is very messy, and speak about this with, I suppose, conviction and not get upset, is because I've done the work. I've done the work on myself. So when I came home last night, the first thing that I did was went upstairs to our top bedroom in the attic. I got my sage out. So obviously if you follow me on Instagram and social media, you will have seen this yesterday. But I went upstairs, got my sage out, got my crystals out, and I got some sound therapy on Spotify. And I sat there for as long as I needed to with some deep breathing, and as long as I needed to process all of my emotions. I bawled and bawled and bawled. And when I thought I was done, I took a minute, and then I started again. I just started bawling again. I was probably there for maybe 20 minutes to start with, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. I did some forgiveness work, put my hands on the heart, felt my heartbeat, and did some forgiveness work. Forgave myself for, any blame, shame, guilt, or anything like that may have come up. Like I said earlier, I'm still needing to kind of process that side of things, of telling people and then taking it, almost like pulling the rug from under people's feet within 24 hours. There was a lot of processing to do with that, and a lot of forgiveness work around that. I then felt the need to journal. Like, I'm so in tune with my body and more my mindset, I suppose, my emotions, that I knew that I needed to put pen on paper and I didn't have any available, and I was like, oh, I could just use my phone. I thought, no, I need to go downstairs and get some because it's just not the same. So I kept my whole setup there, came down, got a pad of paper and pen, went back upstairs. I put my salt lamp on so I could see, because by this time it was like 4:15 and the lights, the light outside was getting dull, but I didn't want to mess with the ambience that I'd created. So I put my salt lamp on, relit my sage, had my crystals out still, and I just journaled away, journaled what I was thankful for, journaled what I forgave myself for, showed myself some love, self-care, all that kind of thing. Just whatever came to my mind that I needed to get out went on this bit of paper. And when I normally say to people, journal about your emotions, I always immediately feel this like little bit of resistance. Through some people have a lot of resistance, but there's always at least a little bit of resistance about like, oh God, journaling about my feelings. I cannot tell you how powerful it is to do that. And you might feel like a frigging 13-year-old girl going, dear diary, oh, the boy I liked today winked at me. Like, it's really not about that. It's about being able to use it as a tool to process your emotions, rather than, it's so easy to, especially within these types of emotions, it's so easy to feed them rather than work through them. And by feed them, I literally could have just sat in my pajamas, could just not had a shower this morning. I could have just lazed around and not really given a shit today. And even last night, I could have just put myself in a hole and just been like, right, okay, well, this is shit, and just fed that emotion, rather than allowing myself to feel it, processing through it in a variety of different ways, to then come out, go to bed. Obviously, I was so exhausted last night, physically and mentally and emotionally. Last night, I was absolutely drained. I'd had 4 vials of blood taken. Obviously, there was a lot of tears. I was struggling with stomach cramps and just the whole process. So I was wiped. I was absolutely wiped out last night. I slept as well as you can do on that kind of note. But because I was able to process my emotions rather than feeding into them, I am now able to sit here and have this one-sided conversation with you. So these tools don't just apply to this type of situation. It applies to anything, any kind of emotion that is super strong, and you are unsure what to do with it, whether you have anger, frustration, sadness, loneliness, whatever it is. These are the kind of tools that you can use to process them instead of sitting in them and wallowing them. So there's a difference between sitting in your emotions and allowing them to be and let them flow through you with the tools that I've just mentioned, and they're in comparison to sitting with the feelings and wallowing in them. There is a very big difference. So I thought it was really important. I know today's been a bit of a longer episode than usual, but I just thought it was a really important thing to share because of a number of different reasons. But if this has triggered you and you've managed to get all the way through this episode, I am so super proud of you. I'm super grateful that you've managed to listen to this episode. I want you to be aware that there are many helplines. There are so many different groups for anyone who does need the support, and my inbox is always open for anyone who does need to talk, whether it is about this situation or something else. Sometimes it is just good to voice things, whether it's to someone you know or to someone that doesn't know you so well. But thank you so much for spending this time with me. I just could not be more grateful for all of your support. Please do give me a follow on social media at Coaching with Sarah B. Give this episode a like, click the subscribe button, and don't forget to hit the notification bell as well to make sure that you never miss an episode. And I will see you next week.
Woo!